Namo Manju Shi, Namo So Shi, Namo Odama Shi, So Ha, Zanje Chedang Soje Chona La, Janjo Bado Dani Gapsu Ji, Dage Junye Gibe Sona Ji, Dola Benge Sangye Juba Isho. Chedang Soje Chona La, Janjo Bado Dani Gapsu Ji, Dage Junye Gibe Sona Ji, Dola Benge Sangye Juba Isho. Chedang Soje Chona La, Janjo Bado Dani Gapsu Ji, Dage Junye Gibe Sona Ji, Dola Benge Sangye Juba Isho. Bege Shushe Medoda, Rali Shini De Jebada, Sange Shindo Mite Maye, Roki Nanda Kila Jeba, Sho, Yeda, Guru Rana Mendala Kandiya Daya, Amen.
Talina Chindi Juda de Vaji, the one ness yet Jidak Chindi, Mana Shikadi Chimochada, Mama Jibaji, Majabala Tanji Machaba, Tiji Mandana, Devan, Deja, Mando, Polo, Chico, doing Bahin, one, Dega, Kiji, Tiji Mandana. They were the DJ give a peasants about the dinner. Dembachi, Dembada, Shani, Lamala, Shinjina. So, what is in the Bachi in the Chambaway?
Please adjust your sitting posture according to the 7 meditative postures of Vairocana. Think, all sentient beings have been my mothers. All sentient beings have been my mothers, not just once, but numberless times. All sentient beings are as kind as my mother in this life. Even though all kind mother sentient beings want happiness and do not even want a small suffering due to mistakenly engaging with objects of adoptions and objects of abandonment, they do not experience any happiness, but suffering. In our minds, sincerely cultivate loving kindness towards all kind mother sentient beings by thinking, how nice it would be if all kind mother sentient beings were to have excellent happiness and the causes of excellent happiness that are virtues. May they have excellent happiness and its causes. I will cause them to have excellent happiness and its causes. Lama deity, please bless me to be able to do so.
No, they just do one ness in the town. The way that doing it, Jomogo, I turn a chimney. Georgie, you draw that, show the same Lama and Shinjino. What was in the Bachi Ninja?
Next week, cultivate compassion towards all suffering mother sentient beings by thinking, how nice it would be if all mother sentient beings were free from all suffering and the causes of suffering that are non-virtues. May they be free from all suffering and its causes. Our freedom from all suffering and its causes. Lama deity, please bless me to be able to do so.
But there is some 20 to the Sanji Kumbatova show. Maybe simple, but in a Ranginika Daichi will also be known, but in Children, the company, the Rangi say, Roji, the tent on the Changi, say the Ranginika Daichi will take it. Dojika be saying, I've been over the children, so it was in the budget. And then 100%
Chanchu is in Koina. Chanchu is in Koina.
The Doji dated, Daichi will take it, Dojika would sing, I've been over it.
That's all.
Sanjay Tanji did the Sanji Kumbatova show. Maybe say, put over the Ranginika Daichi will also be known, but in the Jew. Children, the Rangi Madu, the Rangi sing is Roji, the tent on the Changi, say that Ranginika Daichi will take it. Dojika be saying, I've been over it.
That's all. Next week, cultivate all-encompassing yoga mind. the aspiring conventional bodhicitta that thinks, for the sake of all sentient beings, I will achieve the state of enlightenment. These transform into the aspect of a white five. These transform into the aspect of a. These transform into the aspect of a complete mundis at one's heart. And the ultimate bodhicitta, which is one's mind becoming in one taste with the emptiness of inherent existence of all phenomena. These transform into the aspect of a white five-pronged vajra on top of the mundis. Next, we meditate on emptiness for a short while. The self and the aggregates do not exist as inherently one, nor as inherently different. Thus, is empty of inherent existence. Set a good motivation. For the sake of all mother sentient beings, I will achieve the state of enlightenment. For this, I will listen to the holy teaching and practice properly in order to benefit sentient beings.
Hello, Ken. The Shiraz is muted.
Can hear us?
Yes, can now.
Okay. So you didn't hear, you couldn't hear us, from the very beginning until now, is it?
Just only before the
Okay. Sure, no problem. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so we begin with verse 147 and the first two lines of 148. Say, if when non-existent, it is not possible for an entity to exist, then at what point would an entity become existent? Without an entity becoming produced, it would not become free from being a non-entity. If it does not become free from being a non-entity, the state of existing as an entity would be impossible.
ngeme ge che tenge bo yo ba sigma res de masina tenge bo yo ba na shi je maybe wa na shi je maybe tenge bo ma chi shis tenge me tenge bo chi ma res je bo da hiya ngeme je ne ga de tang ni jo ina da nge bo che ba ma ji ba ngeme je ne ga tang na da ka si de nge bo ma ji ba da tenge me da cha ma res nge bo ngeme je ne ga tang la ba ina ro tang ni nge bo ji go na tenge bo che ba ma ji nge bo ma ji ba da ka da ngeme je ne ga de cha yo ma res tang yo ma res ro ma de ba da ma da ba da jo la tenge me da ma da na tenge bo yo de ka de sigma ngeme me da ma da wa ina de di shi chi ge da nge bo da ngeme ni ga shi chi de ni ga yo ba chi da nge wa res Gawariam, Nubina, Name Migrant, Name, Noble Migrants, Tini, but your Martin, Gawari,
So furthermore, it relates to the previous positions or argument about whether the state of thing and non-thing is forsaken or not. So then furthermore, in the case of the state of non-thing not being forsaken, if when the thing is non-existent, it is not possible for a thing to exist, then at what point does a thing become existent? So in the case of the state of non-thing not being forsaken, then when the thing is non-existent, then it is impossible for a thing to exist because the thing is non-existent, right? So it is impossible for a thing to exist. So then at what point does a thing become existent? So for a thing is not produced at the time of being non-existent. Furthermore, if it becomes so, having forsaken the state of being non-thing, without a thing becoming produced, it will not become free from being non-thing. So if it becomes so, if it becomes a thing having forsaken the state of being non-thing, and without a thing becoming produced, or without the transformations. So without the transformations means that until it becomes a thing, so without a thing becoming produced, so it means that until it becomes a thing, or until it becomes production, then it will not become free from being non-thing. And if it does not become free from non-thing, the state of existent thing is impossible because the two states are contradictory. So it is impossible for a basis. It is impossible for the state of being a non-thing and the state of being a thing to exist on a basis because the state of being a thing and the state of being a non-thing are contradictory. Next two lines of verse 148 say, an entity also does not become an entity also does not become a non-entity because it follows it would be two natures.
다 가서 단다 지당 가서 가샤 까당고 그자 된다서 맞다 쉬고 쉬야 가샤 까당 와 예매 당서 리바 단다 공부 리바서 까당도 쉬어디 자원은 매받지 아 라지 주바서 자원이 요마와 매와 이제 다 대가워 가야 너도 돼 가야 가오리스 와 예매당 예보 매와 다다지와 다 예매 다 간다 지와 가고 들어와 간다 지와 가고 뭐 되지 다들 까다는 말 리바드 가르치게나 다 요치 장지 지와 매대 여바랑지 주바 뭐지 매바랑지 주바 뭐지 다들 가서 띵싱아 쉬어 다들 띵싱아 카트로 쳐도 고단해서 뭐니 저 하라면서 띵싱아는 요미 친구 띵싱이 어디 다들 요미 친구 띵싱아 다들 로마들 게임 들어와 요미 친구 띵싱이라고 어쨌든 띵싱아 기다 로투지 말에 로투 좋아 어디 좋아 요미 친구 띵싱이 다들 단다 강본 강가다마 여바 maka mai neba mai si chi udwa da shi wa da ma ka udwa
yomi kingo itensi
o di yomi chingo tinsi se tanda de yomi chingo tinsi de da yomi chingo tinsi karsna da nyogo de rangi chi wa yo ma da rangi chi wa de yo ma de dusha de rangi chi wa yo ma de maybe junse karsna yo ba rangi chu ba chi wa ma re neba ma chi wa rangi chu ba chi wa ma re
rangi chi wa de chu ba re
o da rangi chi wa me ba du ya nyogo de rangi chi wa me ba du go wa 다 여바랑지 주바지야 말이 내바랑지 주바지야 말이 단다들 얘도 너도 쉬어야 돼. 내 매비 주제 가나 뭐야지 번호 쉬겠어. 뭐 쉬고도 여바랑지 주바지야 게 내바랑지 주바지야 게 요마와. 어디 내 주의나 간다 지와 뒤 단다데 다 주의나 요이나 다 주의나 지와 거 봐래. 주의나 여방 거 봐. 주의나 여방 거 해서 그 주의나 여방 거데 주의나 지와 요 말했어. 주의나 여바가 살아 요거데 주의나 요 말에 저지 바고도 요거데 주의나 요래 나도 걸어. 당은 저 바까와 주의는 요 말이지 주의는 요는 라지 주고 사간다 요 말이지 와 주의는 요 바까오디 주의는 요 바지어가오 다 주의는 지어가디나 주의는 매장 지어 매장 야고 제그르스는 요거데 제는 그래서 제그르스 제비체 가서 제비체 라지 주비 지어가 말이지 제비체 라지 주비 지어요 말이지 라지 주비 지어가 말이지 가자를 된다 치바자 놓고도와 가자데 요거 라지 주바다 와 라지 주바데 지어가 말이지 다 라지 주비 지어요 말이지 와 라지 주비 지어 매비 주세 가르스나 야들이 앉아만 주세 이시나 그 주제나 되고 좋았어 요디 주제나 되는 지어서다 다 라지 주비 지어때 자원이 요양을 라지 주비 지어서 주제 강 개라 마대봐 이제 제 차지 강라 마대봐 주는 거가 어디래
A non-thing does not become a thing, and likewise, a thing also does not become a non-thing. And we are in the context of refuting the objects of negating the objects of refutation, which is inherent existence. So the qualifications of being inherently existent is applicable to this sentence or this context. So a non-thing does not become a thing, and likewise. And likewise, a thing also does not become a non-thing. For example, an inherently existent thing also does not become a non-thing. An inherently existent non-thing does not become a thing. So because if it were half thing and half non-thing, then a singularity would follow as being established in two natures. So it means that if it were half thing and half non-thing, so if half of it is a thing and half of it is a non-thing, then a singularity means on a single basis, then it would follow that a single basis is being established in two natures. So one thing itself or single basis would have two natures, being a thing and also being a non-thing. So these reasonings refute the productions of all, the utterly non-existent, which is do not exist at all, and the non-things. So and the non-things means that so it refutes the non-thing, right? So it means that it refutes the productions of a non-thing. Again, the qualifications of inherent existence is applicable to this context. So the non-thing becoming a thing or a non-thing is produced is being refuted. So the qualifications of inherent existence and the or the qualifications of true existence is refuted here, because an inherently existent thing or non-thing do not exist at all. And then he says, the subject, a sprout, is not inherently produced because an existent is neither inherently not produced nor inherently produced, just as in the case of the son of a barren woman. So here he says that because an existent is neither inherently not produced nor inherently produced, and this relates to the reasonings of existence, the reasonings of existence and non-existence, and the productions and cessation. So there are 5 reasonings, and then this is one of the reasoning. So this reasoning is called the reasonings of existence and non-existence, production and cessation. And and here basically it says that this reasoning is trying to establish that there is no inherent existence of there is no inherently existent non-thing, and there is no inherently existent non-thing. There is no inherently existent thing, and there is no inherently existent non-thing. Yeah. So, and there is no inherently existent there is no inherently established existence, and there is no inherently established non-existence. Yeah. So this is trying to prove that there is no such inherent existence. And because and he says, even though the productions of what is non-existent at the time of its cause is refuted, so some Samkhyas, they assert that productions exist at the time of the cause. So this is their assertions. For example, sprout exists at the time of the cause. So, and however, here he says, even though the productions of what is non-existent at the time of its cause is refuted, inherent production of that non-existent at the time of its cause, when it is produced, is refuted. Thus, qualifications are applied to the objects of refutation, means that result or production doesn't exist at the time of the cause. In other words, the productions of the result doesn't exist at the time of the cause. For example, sprout doesn't exist at the time of the cause. So result existing at the time of the cause is refuted. So this relates to the first line. And then inherent production of that non-existent when it is produced is refuted. So what it means is sprout doesn't exist at the time of the cause. So that is one thing. So that is what is being established. In other words, the productions at the time of the cause is refuted. So this is the second line. So the meaning is exactly the same for the first sentence and the second sentence. So the first sentence talks about result or sprout. Result, for example, sprout doesn't exist at the time of the cause. So a result, for example, sprout exists at the time of the cause is refuted. Then inherent productions of that non-existent when it is produced is refuted. So it means that production doesn't exist at the time of the cause. So in other words, production at the time of the cause is refuted. Yeah. Then thus qualifications are applied to the objects of refutations. So, and however, when we say thus a sprout, because I think so even though it doesn't exist at the time of the cause, for example, sprout, even though it doesn't exist at the time of the cause, so thus a sprout will a sprout be produced or not? Yes, it will be produced. So the productions of the sprout is not refuted. So production at the time of the cause is refuted, but production for example, a sprout is not refuted. So we are not refuting the productions of the result, for example, a sprout, but we are refuting the production at the time of the cause. Yeah. So when a sprout is produced, then the inherent existent production is refuted. So that is what it means by even though it doesn't exist, even though a result doesn't exist at the time of the cause. However, when a result is produced, the inherently existent production is refuted. So thus, qualifications are applied to the objects of refutation. So the qualifications which is inherent existence or true existence. So true existence or inherent existent production is refuted. So therefore, that's why it says that the qualifications are applied to the objects of refutation. So why does the inherently existent production is refuted? Because they come into production in dependence on cause and conditions. So in relation to this point, which is the inherently existent productions is being refuted. So there are many quotations can be quoted to support this point. For example, from the fundamental wisdom, from entering the middle way, from the lamp of the path, and etc. So there are many texts and sutra that can be quoted to support this point. Next outline is refuting inherently existent cessation. And under this outline is verse 149. It says, in that case, there is no cessation and also entities do not exist. Therefore, all these migrating beings are always not produced and not ceased. In the manner explained above previously, so a production does not exist inherently. So it relates to the production that doesn't exist inherently. So an inherently existent production is refuted. So similar to this explanation, in this way, there is no inherent cessation and also things do not exist inherently. So in brief, it talks about there is no inherently existent production, there is no inherently existent cessation, and there is no inherently existent abiding. So it talks about these three important points, the production, the cessation, and also abiding, and they do not exist inherently. So therefore, all these migrating beings are always not inherently produced and not inherently ceased, and they are pacified from the very beginning, and they are just natural nirvana. So they are just natural nirvana. It can also be translated as they are naturally go beyond sorrow. So natural nirvana in art, it can also be translated as they are naturally gone beyond sorrow. And next outline is establishing the equality of samsara and nirvana. I repeat, establishing the equality of samsara and nirvana. And under this outline is the first two lines of verse 150. Says, migrating beings are like a dream. When analyzed, they resemble a plantain tree.
But the Dan do Milan Tabas dear on that, and do Milan Tabata, Lenny wanted also, that Kuala Chani Sipa, and what's the word? Wa, Lenny Wanki. Lenny Wanki Sipa, Kuala Chani, and what's so. And what's the Kanda, Milan Taba, Milan Jinawata, yes, what Milan Jinawata. Milan Jinawata, and that Namsela Pro, Shashi Mandeba, so needed, the numbers Nansela, Shashi Mandeba, Koran, Duana, Shashi Mandeba, so needed. Need but nangre in a Netsila, maybe Netsila, the Rangi to Pachunze, Maris. Nansila Tita, Shaji Mandepata, Soso Tubana with Nanguris. Nangur the Ina, that Netsila Rangi to Patani, Yomaris. Netsila Rangi to Pachunze, Yomaris. Rangi to Pachunze, Yomaris. Mandeba Soso Nips, that much that they would walk. Oh, Rangi to Pachunze, Yomaris. Ko Mulantaba did that Mulantaba China, Rangin, Mulantabasna, Rangin and one Sutu, Situbata, which Nanguris, Rangin, Koran when it's a two and which Nangu the Ina, you are that did do with the Decorana Chepache, Ripiki Chepache, Ripiki Chepache, and a way is to do the Medusa started Sas, and started Chepache, Chepache, the Gazi could Chishin and Nimbo Zawanashi. Chishin and Nimbo Salade, Nimbo Niake Omaras. And what the Koran situation when the Tuba Tabaji Nangu, when it's a Koran situation when the Tuba to do with the opposite say, Jewdy, Jewdy, Tanyaka, Omares, Koran to do near me to calendar with the Chihina Nimbozoa, but the Chihina Nimbo Katsevana, Niaki Omar was. Inashi, Doa, Chihina Nimbo Katsi, near Yoma, didn't yes, Doa, Nimbo, Chihina Nimbozoa and Doa, Dagres, Kana, Doa. That don't need to be nimble. That's so that don't need to be nimble Jones and near your money. Yes, Takata, Rangi to be nimble Jones and nearby take it, pay Chihila, Nimbozena, near me. Pay the Benetini Jawa. Chihila Nimbozena near your mares, did it, or Rangi to be nimble car, so to the courage nimble Zevina, Rangi to be nimble near your mares. Pena, Chihi nimble Zewa and Davares, near your Dinaki, yes, or near Maris. The dinner songs are that kind of no, as a deconan and other Jepa 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 Chewdi, Kandarwa, deconan and other Jepa Chia, the Jepan Logo Maris and other Santana, Santana Pua, Santana Citizen, Jansana Lora, Santana. The Loguna, that kind of Tani the top of the Chetan, the do the Tani top of the Mansiba. Yes, I just Shannon Dimas.
Rangi to go Mindus, they are tiny
Patata, yes, I Chile, Chajan, Dimas.
Rangi to Mindus, the Patas race
to be Patata. Yes, I did, Dumare, to be Patata, Maze, when to be Patata Nashi Koran when do the Jebaches. That is ours. Then it started taking the true Mudu, then it Jebachi, Jebina, Koran with the do the Jebachi, then when 당아서 제가 대표는 제가 노래 도시 구분했어. 와, 도시 제가 지야 로 문도서 왔어. 니지 구레마도 괜찮아 보데. 네, 간다. 로이 따바던지 지금 말이지 간다. 와, 라로 미다 로이 따바던지 대자지 자는 지금 말이지. 따바 마치 거라고 거는 죽은 누구도 따대 잡을 해서 가다 된다. 따대 잡을 해서 와. 얘네 따대 야부지 자네 제바이나 어때 보내 제바 누구를 했어. Tani Tata Chile, then Hayi, so almost Japan Tani Japan de la Wara. Oh, the Nichel is done also Japan. We need to be the Conan Japan, Romodo, Sergi, or the Jensana.
Jubachatian, Shidian Diranshi to me do the Anjubachat.
To be Patata, that Chairman Juma, to be Patata, here, to be Patata, the Shajan Digmari, to be Patata, Imamati, Koran, when it's started San Dubam to Zeres. Then Jepachi. Or that's in the Jepachi Dama, when it's a Niamerwa. What the little Jepachi, 제바지가지 여바이나 때때 권한에 제바지가 노래했어. 노래서 어다 된다 되리죠.
Migrating beings of cycle existence are like a dream. So migrating beings, due to karma and afflictions, then they are born in samsara or born in cycle existence. And then these migrating beings, they are like a dream because even though they do not exist inherently, they abide individually without the actions and the agents being mixed. So this is from the appearance. From the appearance side. And then when analyzed with the from the abiding side, it means that they do not exist inherently. So from the appearing side, from the side of appearance, then we appears to exist inherently. However, from the side of abidance, so it means that the actual modes of abidance, then migrating beings do not exist inherently. So when analyzed with the reasoning, analyzing suchness, they resemble a plantain tree because even though they appear like they are self-instituting, they lack even the slightest inherent existent essence. So they resemble a plantain tree. Then this is the example or analogy. So the meaning is, if we analyze with the reasoning, analyzing suchness, then migrating beings are like a plantain tree. So the meaning is migrating beings appear like they are self-instituting. So migrating beings appear to be self-instituting, appear to be inherently existent, appear to be exist from their own side. And however, they do not exist. They lack even the slightest inherently existent essence. So we do not exist inherently. So we do not have such inherently existent essence like the essence of a plantain tree. So if we go and search for the essence of a plantain tree, then we will not be able to get to the essence. So, and similar to this example or this analogy that a plantain tree lacks an essence, then migrating beings, even though they appear to be inherently existent or self-instituting, but we do not have that inherently existent essence, or we do not exist inherently at all. And then as to whether or not a position constitutes analysis of suchness, so these positions can also be translated as the meaning of this word position can be translated as threshold, can be translated as boundary or limit. So as to whether a threshold constitutes analysis of suchness, then without being satisfied with mere imputations of name conventions, then due to desiring to search for the manner in which the basis upon which the convention operates exists, the analysis constitutes an analysis of suchness. So whether it will become an analysis of suchness or not, then in the first case, then it will only become analysis of suchness if, without being satisfied with mere imputations of name conventions, then due to desiring to search for the manner in which the basis upon which the convention operates exists, the analysis constitutes an analysis of suchness. Means that without being satisfied with mere imputations of conventions of name, then wishing to search for the modes of existence of the basis of convention, then we analyze whether that basis, whether we can find the imputed object or not. So here it says, due to desiring to search for the manner in which the basis upon which the convention operates exists. So it means that, so you wish to search for the modes of existence of a basis upon which search for the manner of existence of a basis for affixing a term. So it means that, the basis of imputation. So the basis for affixing a term, in other words, is the basis of imputation. So, or basis upon which a label is designated. So desiring to search for its modes of existence, then we search then we analyze whether the imputed object can be found or not, and then can be found or not, and then that will become an analysis of suchness. So otherwise, the second one, it doesn't constitute an analysis of suchness. So otherwise, being satisfied with mere imputations of conventions, the analysis of whether or not Devadatta has come or not, and the like, constitutes analysis of conventions. Kangsa dashi pumbunga la tene tobe nga taba zamwa. Tobe taba zamwa. Taba zamwa. Dashi pumbunga tene tabi patanzari. Ani di tobe nga sa diang di ta duen ro. Ta duen diang di ce ro. Ani diang pumbu dashi pumbunga la ani diang di due me pa di kao yu me ni di ta ju che ro.
Ka ce nian yo ma ro. Wa ta de ce wu ta ka ce.
Ani di kasati tekonani la jeba de to yo.
Jeba do mo se se chi de,当然是对等的都写不多，那地方，是吧？
So as to whether or not a position or a boundary constitutes an analysis of suchness or not, because whether or not a position or boundary constitutes an analysis of suchness, for example, person. So person is merely imputed as I by the conceptual thoughts, by the conceptual thought in dependence on its basis of imputation, the 5 aggregates. So the imputed object is I, right? So then we need to search for this I, whether where does it exist? Does it exist? Where does it exist in the basis of imputation or on the basis of imputations of 5 aggregates? So whether it exists at the upper part of the 5 aggregates, for example, whether it exists at the upper part of the mind, for example, and then upper part of the body, for example, or it exists at the lower part of the body, or does it exist in the middle part of the body? So these are the 5. These are the aggregates upon which a person is, upon which a person depends. So and then the imputed thought, the conceptual thought impute that as I, right? So so from the so start from the beginning. So we say that a person depends on its basis of imputations, which are 5 aggregates, and then it is merely imputed as I by the conceptual thought. So that I is the imputed object. then we have to search for this imputed object, which is I. So where does it exist on the basis of aggregates? Then whether it exists on the upper part or on the lower part or in the middle part, then these will constitute an analysis of suchness. So this boundary or this threshold will become an analysis of suchness. So and then when you search for this imputed object, which is I, then how is it? And because the I that doesn't that exists without depending on any of the basis of imputation. Yeah, the I doesn't exist because the I. So the I without depending on any of the basis of imputation doesn't exist at all, thus is empty of inherent existence. So when you search for this imputed object, the I or the self, so the self or the I, without depending on any of the basis of imputation, doesn't exist. So I doesn't exist. I that does not depend on any of the basis of imputation could not exist or doesn't exist. So it thus is empty of inherent existence. And when this is realized, then it constitutes the realizations of selflessness of person. Next two lines of verse 150. Also, having passed and not having passed beyond sorrow are not different in thusness.
당아서 고대 보시는 두스바 상당한 디고로와 일단은 도도 자산인데 시신이 되죠. 시바 과다 효과는 없는 일이 되는 맞아서 얘는 된다 도도의 시신이가 랑이지 매년 했어. 랑이 주기 매년.
So we are under the outlines of establishing the equality of samsara and nirvana, right? So in other words, it means, is establishing samsara and nirvana in being empty of inherent existence, or equally being empty of inherent existence. So that is what it means by establishing the equality of samsara and nirvana. So it means that they are equal in being empty of inherent existence. So, and he says, also having passed beyond sorrow, when where one has been released from the bondage of attachment and so forth. So here it talks about the three poison: attachment, hatred, and ignorance, and also pride and etc., jealousy and etc. However, the three main ones are the three poisons. So when one has been released from the bondage of attachment and so forth, then one has passed beyond sorrow. And not having passed beyond sorrow, where one is incarcerated in the prisons of cyclic existence, so one is imprisoned in cyclic existence, and they are not different in suchness. So they are not different in suchness means that so they are not different in suchness means that they do not suchness are not different in suchness. They cannot need to keep a mess at day, and they cannot need to maduba la jibara. They cannot need to maduba la jiba yomarwa. They are rang shingi maduba gitendaro. So are not different in suchness means that they are not different in being not established in suchness. So they are not different in suchness means that they are not different in being not established in suchness. So another way of saying this is they are both equally non-inherently existent. So it is just as it has been said in the King of Meditative Civilization Sutra, the migrating beings of cyclic existence are like dreams. In these, there is no birth, nobody dies. And the superior requested by Nyawako Sutra or Upali says, if one has comprehended the natures of phenomena, then all results do not exist. There is also no attainment of results. So, so it means that if one were to, then all results do not exist. So the meaning of this quotation, it says that if one were to apprehend phenomena as inherently existent, one will not attain any result. So there is also then all results do not exist.
어디 오르다 니는 견뎌 봤다 와서 뭐다 동반에 돈도 발라 내리까 동바들와 동바들 아니는 견뎌 봐라 사치 담아와
내를 기튼 동바
니는 견뎌 봐라 견뎌 봐도 와서 돈이 또 발만 매봐 당바들 갖다 주지 좀 싶어요 돈이 또 오래서 다들 담바들와 대다 동비면 하나서 더버지 휴지였어 강교진도 시방 용선년继续용선년继续修了个进度啊得嘛继续学
So next outline is the instruction on the appropriateness of making effort in realizing emptiness. I repeat, the instruction on the appropriateness of making effort in realizing emptiness. So this is the big outline, and under this there is a sub outline, which is indicating the meaning of the mode of abidance. Indicating the meaning of the modes of abidance. And under this sub-outline is verse 151, says, with respect to entities that are empty in that way, what attainment is there? What loss is there? Who is honored or despised by whom?
That you did not show the and the Nashi because Rangi Tombi, you know Bonarwa, that Rangi Tombi, Nashi Battery, Rangi Tombi, no Bonala, Rangi to Bangani, the Ligi, Rangi Mene, Java, Rangi Mene, the Tawaina. That the Ligi Tani, the Niamba Tobala, Gawa Karios, Gawachi, that was Jin Chigenoma Tomashura, the Rangi to be Mene Gana, the Ligabaina, the Niamba Tobaina, Gawachi. Gawachi, Nimba Matoba, Shuala, Yelava, Shuala, Magawachi, Roa, Nimba Matoba, Shuala, Sawa, Tahiana Shuala, Magawachi, the Kanza Rangi, Kanza Roa, Kanza, Kangi, Turkish and Roshiba, Kanza Kandina Suteratana, Kanji Turkish and Roshiba, Gawashi Pachishivas, Roa, the Literatomena, Gawashi Pachishivas. They made marathon, made Yonsen, Nibachiba, that marathon, Nimichibarwa, Marathonica. The Nijunda Shibarwa, Nima Meratonala, the millions Nimba Shibala, the Maga Shibachis, and I didn't Nilando, Gajendo Shibata, Yonse, maybe Pembata, Neva Shiba, the Maga, Gamagachi, that didn't Chigen, shifting with the Tomushiros one, or did it?
In things which are empty of inherent existence in the way previously explained above, if one were to evaluate from the side of inherent existence, so another way of saying this is if one were to look from the side of inherent existence, then due to what gain will one become attached? So here it talks about the 8 worldly concerns. So here it says due to what gain will one become attached, and what attainment is there? What gain is lost? Will one generate anger? Then what loss is there? There is not the slightest. Then here it talks about the first 2 worldly concerns, which is when one obtain a gain, then one feels happy or one is joyful, and when one lost a gain, then one one doesn't because one doesn't feel joyful or one is not happy about it. So then it talks about the first 2 worldly concerns in relation to gain. To obtain a gain and to lose again, then one feels happy and one feels not happy about it. And who will be benefited or also harmed in being either honored or despised by whom? So this second line talks about the next 2 worldly concerns in relation to praise and criticism or despise. So when one is praised, then one feel happy, and one is despised, or one is being criticized. One is criticized by another, then one is not happy about it, or one feels unhappy about it. So this relates to the next 2 worldly concerns. So the first 4 worldly concerns are mentioned or indicated in these lines.
Gachi yes, Jenny Dunn Zajana, Ganji, Seti Kanasis. The Sholoba Chinua, that the Madidia, the Shinwapno, the chicken, Shinos, that the ship, the man, Shinwa.
The Tamashide.
Tamashide.
Det dör mer då.
Det var det.
Så. Yeah, verse 152 says, where does happiness or suffering come from? What is there to be displeased about? What is there to be pleased about? When searched for in thusness, what craves and what does it crave for?
That is Kanda. That is going to Shindo Sarwa. That is Shila Kanda. And you did on the show. That was a listen de Wachola, the Hachagi. That toba the point to the Bebashi Chimboji. They didn't listen at the Wachola, Hachagawan Chishivas. Wa, this is the God, Dini Gawan Chishivas. The Walla, either send at the Wachola, Gawan Chishivas. They did the Wachola, Magashi Jinsecanis. Wa, the Wachola, Magashi Jinsecanis. That see Manyabarwa, Manyaba dog, that he gets to see Manyaba dog. Any Manyaba Dawina, Ibu Gawashi Chishivas. Wa, King Manyaba, see dog at Roa. Manyaba, the Teba, the Roa, Manyaba, Suzu Teba, the King drop at the Roa, Manyaba dog, Ibu Gawashi Chishivas. That's the Nyamba, Nyamba Taba, Joina, 신년 받들이 잡아 좋은 길라 가와지 버스 이제 이거 말했어
신년 퇴보야나 잡아야나 디가와 데
신년
지시요.
뭐니 말와 년받아 년봐 저보다 잡아더니 좋아이나 잡아 좋은 길라 가와지 버스 된다 도도데 지딘지 취지를 예수 관리지 좋아이나 그와 지딘 취지를 예수 관리지 이게 좋아하다 많이 봐서 관리지 마주 마이나 예수 이 좋아라 가와다 많이 봐라 뭐가 지금 이제 생각하여 말했다 원년 받아 그래 와 원년 충받아 와 원년 받아 되니 지딘지 취지기 돈을 와 지딘지 취지기 돈에 년 봐서 이제 좋아라 가와지 다 많이 봐서지 뭐가 와서 싫어 많이 봐서 뭐가 와서 싫어 뭐가 와서 이제 저 이거 봐죠 요 말했어 그 장기 중에는 이자와는 다 최단지 냠반이도 얘기를 해서 간다 장기 중에 요 장기 중에는 있잖아 최단지 냠반이도 얘기 냠반이도 시비지와라 나와다 신바다지 어디 대다들의 추지고 막 어떻게 라이든 비싸와 장기 좀 와도 말에 간다 시는 맛이 나와 미 세바지 시간리지나 와 네 세바지 시다 세바다 이바다 대 간리는 생 고수랑 이지 뭐 누가 지냈어 그 사마 예수 shakuduwa seba ji hi seba ji hi da
seba po
seba
po tang de seba rang
mi ba wa desung bode kosu na ji tukwa yo ma des desung bode ta ro ji ma tukwa yo ma des
shi na di yu ro
wa hi de ta ro
yu ro
seba ji de hi de ro
seba ki shi na di yu de ro
hi de ro
其实假些里送送了，假些里送了，
최지래 서 나도 들어와 스바지 히 강나 세바고 강히 미바 강나 세비 고스나 하지 마 두바 예스 이러고 봐 다 샤지래서 간다와 샤지래서 하지 마 두바 예스 다 간다 최지래 배 간다 지진 최지왕이다 예소 라서 앞에 시 토바라 근데 시다 토바라 타바라 내가 지히어스 다 많이 받아 간다 못해 봐라서 와 이제 시와 그래서 내가 시비 이제 시와 말했어 나랑 이제 주바 뭐 주바 냥 말했어 나랑 이제 주바 주세요 요 말했어 이제 내가 들어와
For the sake of obtaining and abandoning, why does one make effort? Where does the true cause of happiness or suffering come from? What undesirable object is there to be displeased about? What desirable object is there to be pleased about? When searched for in thusness with the reasoning that analyzes the meaning of the modes of abidance, what craver craves for what basis that generates craving, and what objects of observation does it crave for? For the three wheels of craving are not inherently existent. So here, basically, then it talks about the remaining four worldly concerns. So here, then you can see the happiness, suffering, and then the next two lines, then it talks about the pleasant words and unpleasant words. So where does happiness or suffering come from? What is there to be displeased about? What is there to be pleased about? So when one finds happiness, then what is there to be pleased about? And then when one experiences suffering, then what is there to be displeased about? Then, and also when one hears the pleasant words, or when others proclaim pleasant words, then what is there to be pleased about? And when one hears unpleasant words, or when one proclaims our unpleasant words about us, then what is there to be displeased about? So here it talks about the 8 worldly concerns. Then in brief, it says, so whatever, when these 8 worldly concerns arises, then what is there to be pleased about and what is there to be displeased about? So these 8 worldly concerns can be divided into 2 groups. One is when you find it, for example, happiness, gain, pleasant words, and then what is there to be pleased about when you obtain such or when you experience such. So similarly, the second group are those unpleasant words, the despise or criticism, and loss and etc. So when these arises, or when we lost such thing, or when we do not find gain, or when we experience suffering, or when we hear unpleasant words, then what is there to be displeased about, since they are not inherently existent? Yeah, and also then when search for in thusness with the reasoning that analyzes the meaning of the modes of abidance, what craver craves for what basis that generates craving, and what objects of observation does it crave for? So the three wheels. So and it can also be translated as the three spheres of craving are not inherently existent. So probably we are more familiar with three spheres. So basically, it refers to the same thing, the object, the action, and also the agent. So these three spheres or three wheels of craving are not inherently existent. That's what Verse 153, upon analyzing what is this transitory support of the living that will die here, who will arise and who has a reason, who is a companion, and also who is a friend. Upon upon analysis regarding karma, the accumulator of karma, and so forth in this way, what is this sentient being that is imputed by taking the aggregates that are the transitory collection as the basis of imputation, the transitory support of the living that will die here in this cycle existence, for dying is not inherently existent. Who will arise in the future life and who has arisen in the past lives, who is a helpful associate, also who is an affectionate friend, for nothing is even slightly inherently existent. Thus, by realizing the meaning of the modes of abidance, make effort to neutralize the 8 worldly concerns. So, a being, so who is the, so who is the one that is survived? Who is the one that survives? Who is the one that dies? Who is the one that transmigrates? And who is the one that will come? They will arise in future lives, and who is the one that has already arisen in the past lives? So who or what person is that, or what being is that? What beings that survives? What beings that dies? What beings that transmigrates? What beings that will arise in the future lives? And what being that has already arisen in the past life? So, and it says, who is a helpful associate? So who is your friend? Who is your parents? Then who is your affectionate friend, or your relatives, and etc. So, and then they are all four, and nothing is even slightly inherently existent. So it means that they are all equal in being non-inherently existent. So thus, by realizing the meaning of the modes of abidance, make effort to neutralize the 8 worldly concerns. So to neutralize the 8 worldly concerns means that when these appearances, these 8 worldly concerns appears, then why were we too, why are we too happy about it? And then why are we too happy about it? Why we are too happy about it? And when these 8 worldly concerns appear, and then why are we so why do we why do we too happy about it, and why do we too angry about it, or not happy about it? So when these 8 worldly concerns appears, then why are we happy about it, or why are we not happy about it, since they are not inherently existent? In other words, they are not truly existent. So, and here, neutralize the 8 worldly concerns mainly refutes the attachment and hatred. So the summarized meaning of this verse is, so the being who dies, and the beings who survives, and the beings who will arise in the future lives, and the being who has arisen in the past lives, and together with friends and relatives, are equal in being non-inherently existent. So they do not. So all these do not exist as we attach to. So they are not. They do not exist as we cling to. They are not. They do not exist as we cling to. The first 2 lines of verse 154 say, may those who are like me apprehend all as being like space.
다디 되다 되는도 최 탄지 양카던다와 남카던다와서 누구도 최 탄지 남카던다와 최 탄지 남카던다와 안다와는 와 숑좀바고 제세 지고 쉬와라 아니도 와 숑좀바고 제세 지고 쉬와라 아니 숑좀바고서 제세 지고 쉬와라 파나로 와 제세 지고 쉬와라 코랑기 예 쉬와라 랑기 단다이 와 단다이 와 용수 순데 단다이 간다 수송고서 단다와 용수 송아 이게 진주기 제원아 소소기 진주기 제원 와 소소 진주기 제부서만 담바 아까 간다 소모 코랑 진주 제부서만 담바 담바 가르스나 다나 그 다나 들나다 가르 담거스나 맞다 담바스만 라와서 와 가르 라와스나 돈이 도비 로데로 간다 최 타지 장이지 이제 고도 시바는 최 타지 장이지 마두비 동바도비论理CP 早接些的，或 CP 早接些的，的是，或 CP 早接些的，东都的老的是。哦，长期情况也恐怕头发呢，这边是不是浪起做的的是，的是我看的，是吧？或 CP 嘛咱们中包括这是怎么学了，然后那些对，那个被接进入了，看着当的是，嘛看着那个是呢，或 CP 嘛早接些的看着是呢。돈이 더 비켜는 뒤로 돈이 더 비켜야 돼. 단지 좀 공부하라. 야 토야게 단지 공부하려 저버집에 나한테 가서 나한테 하라 했어. 돈이 비켜라 했어. 그 단다와는 좀법에 케이크 와서 다 그런 나자 보다. 근데 또 케이크 와서 서로 나자 내리 넘어와. 나자 내리 넘어. 케이크 와 나자. 그 데리데 담바다 dansa 세스나 다 돈이 많도 비슷 줬어. 돈이 많도 비슷 줬어. 저만 담아 했어. 그거 돈이 많도 비슷 줬어. 어디다 메시지하고 해서 딱 되는 되는 도도 디시도 와.
And these two lines are.
처음에 난카다 나와서 비 너무 말이 난카다 나와 그래서 나와. 그 난카다 나와 그래서 너야 들어와. 난카다 나와서 가서 난카서 와서 가서 토리 토리 까듯이 나가서 레와다 까봐 있네. 차리 내가서 오고 와. 토리 까듯이. 토야가 레저도 다 와서 와. 와. 토리 까듯이 내가서 오고 와. 나가 비 나가다 나와 그래서 와. 나가다 나서 가서나 나가다 토비 레저도 다 와. 나가 나가서 토바다 레바다 다 와지 와. 토야 말이야 나가서 갔다. 토리 저희 차리 다 저희 차리 샤바 달라고 나가대. 그래서 가두지나 토리 까듯이 내가서 안 지들어 와.
토리 까점기.
토리 까듯이 내가 와. 토바다 야요 말슬로 와. 토리 까듯이 내가 대 나시로 다 최탄지지 니루로 최탄지 니루 대상지 주비 가자다 차이 차리 대다 명 말했어. 최탄지 니루로 와. 최탄지 니루게 대상지 주비 가자다 차이 차네 가자다 타와로 와. 최탄지 니루 가자다 차이 차네 대난가 토리 까듯이 가자다 차이 토리 토야다 대화be 차이 차네로 와. 이 차이 차네 대다 충만 얘가 좀 나가다 충분히 해서 오르와 토레 까다지 내가 나히 최상지 메로디야 가자 대바도 봐 까다지 내가 내가 도도 집발에서 배대니 봐 야자 되다 나가다 나와리 나서 나가다 나게 쓰르스나 최상지 메로디 가자 대바도 봐 까다지 해서 까다지 내가 나가데 토레 까다지 내가 그러와 어디다 숨바 해서 나가다 나와서 나도 돼
yang rangsi duba gaja dang dewe chane ne de dang chong wa ni de yang tore ka zam gi mega
최상지 니루디도 와 최상지 니루디 다 장지 주비 가자 차와레스 장지 주비 가자 차와 자이 딴데 가지 해서 하나 데려와 되나시 어디 라스트 때 나가 라스트
These two lines are under the outlines of it is appropriate to make effort in realizing it. It is appropriate to make effort in realizing it. And then the meaning of the first two lines of 154 is, may those who are like me, the author of the text, which refers to Bodhisattva Shantideva, apprehend all phenomena as being like space, because doing that cuts the root of cycle existence and is the principal path for proceeding to omniscience. Those who are like me expresses the humility of the author. Principle signifies that it is advice for ordinary beings who have not realized suchness. So may those who are like me, Bodhisattva Shantideva, apprehend all phenomena as being like space. This will be explained later. So because doing that cuts the roots of cyclic existence, and also is the principal path for proceeding to omniscience. So here is the instruction given by Bodhisattva Shantideva to the followers. So says that this wisdom realizing emptiness is the one that cuts the roots of samsara and is also the principal path for proceeding to omniscience. And then those who are like me expresses the humility of the author. So shows that the author do not have pride. And principle signifies that it is advice for ordinary beings who have not realized suchness. So here is means that it is an instructions or advice for mainly for ordinary beings who have not realized suchness. And then here it says, apprehend all phenomena as being like space. So being like space means that space is a non-affirming negations. That is a mere negations of obstruction, mere negations of obstructions and touch. Yeah, so non-affirming negations, there is a mere negations of obstruction and touch. And similar to space, so all phenomena, the modes of abidance of all phenomena, so the modes of abidance of all phenomena are free from their objects of refutation, which is inherent existence. And from this side or from this perspective, then they are similar. So the space, which is a non-affirming negation, then is similar to the modes of abidance of all phenomena, which is free from the objects of refutation. Yeah. So the separation from the objects of refutation, which is inherent existence, is a non-affirming negation. So these non-affirming negations in relation to all phenomena is similar to the non-affirming negations of the space. Yeah, in relation to the space. So therefore, apprehend all phenomena as being like space. So space is a non-affirming negations that is a merely negations of obstructions and touch or tangibility. Then similarly, all phenomena are like this. So the modes of abidance of all phenomena are free from the objects of negation, which is the inherent existence. And then from this perspective, then they are similar. So therefore, it says, apprehend all phenomena as being like space.
나도 원래 가서 천직이 님이 그래도 와 천직이 님이 그래서 다니 대원 내나는 탑다 주의 주다기 저도 주다 가와치 양행 배주 저바다 핀지 죄다 미바다 디다기는 세신 소스 뭐 비리샤 쇼로가 지나 까마니도와 어디마다 시행이 되듯이.
Next outline is the disadvantage of this life. And under this outline is next two lines of 154 and 155. Say, those who desire happiness themselves by means of the causes of conflict and delight are agitated and joyful. They live with great difficulty through sorrow, struggles, disputes, cutting and stabbing each other, and negativities.
야부지 마시바 대왕에 다 대왕을 치도 현자들에 가다 현자 내당 와 수속에 대왕을 다시 돼 야부지 마시바지 내 대왕이 대왕을 다시 치다 간다 현자지야 돼 맞아 내당 보러 와서 다 내당 보 간리진 앞에 맞아 현자들 내우여래 괜찮리에 이제 투자를 가도 있으나 스스로 니지도야 답시 다시 데이터는 다 괜찮네요. 간다. 다시 제마해 봐지 니지도야 다시 오해는 다가 마해 봐지 다 데이터는 내고 간다. 그 니지도야 치도 그 가서 배 대화 도와서 봐 동안 봤어야 데이체도 옆에 로 세들 하자 괜찮아요. 그 데이체도 다시 두 마시네 대화 도와지래 그 해나 저봐 제봐다 두 번째 봐 좋아 저번에 두 번째 다 라마가스들 파 다타와 다 소소 가자들 하자페 될라 괜찮지 될라페 간다 가이드는 다 간다 신년보다 그래서 가라는 빠지다 봐서 너야 하지 내 땅에 김보서야 치도 집자가지 야 대왕은 투루야 들이 제타는 야 대왕은 대화 주다는 맛이 야 대왕 투루 미세게 예트바다 빠지다 봐도 네 마음이 쉬고 자가지 야 대왕이 야 투루야 대화 디지트야 다다 제모로 투루야 와 근데 여봐 말은 다 근데 대화 두에 쳐도 되기 두에 쳐도 달라 타봐다 저봐 되게 제는 여봐 두마도 니라 하자 또아지네 네 빠진다 또 칼라나면 다만 라미 땅에 되게 왕게 양 투루하지 어 되게 용거레스 되게 있어도 다 대화 두에 근데 봐 마시바이나 대화다다 마시바이나 다 냐니 등에 치네 야 아이게 와 든 수양 대화실에 수좀 배서지는 희나 다 저거 마치 되게 쏘다 봐 내가 놔 되게 배 희나 말 전화서 봐 컨디션을 맞대 봐다 이공부 받아서 봐 되게 다 사실 되시는 와 근데 사실 지야래 가다 소소 디지털하게 타 마시 봐타 마누아지 두 마시 봐 된다데 디톤 내고 그래 어 디톤 내고 와서 다 되게 디지털에 쳐도 내가 간다 소 대화니자 당가서 나지 고 제라 고 우마지 마부지 누가 좋아 정말 고는 거 아닌데 시고 되는와 대화 대접에 다 대화 두하게 주대 하야 뭐 먹어 봤지 그 줄로 봐지 두내 대화게 에 등이 요하지 주주 대화 두하게 주대 등에 두하게 주라 차로 간다 누마 시바이나 좋아 대화 두하게 주대 부담도 마시는 다 등에 요하게 주라 차로 그 등이 차 순사 내 등이 두네 또 리와지 순각이 다 리다가 이 순각에 다 디파 세력이 와서 다 간다 디파 세력이 다 디파 세력이 와서 이나 내가 간다 다 되게 제법 가서 제법 좋아지 마 다 니와요 말했어 와 제법 좋아지 yes 와 등이 순사 다 하자 세들라 현차 마치 세들라 현차 되어 와 하자기 제다나 다 주의 거래 했어 와 다 지나가서 다 현차 여마서 갈래 가보러 가 다 현차 여바이나 현차的가봐쇼 누구도 이 다시 내가 되시오 무슨 좋아
So just now, as mentioned, as being like space, right? As a perennial phenomena, as being like space, then space is a non-affirming negation. There is a mere negations of obstructions and tangibility, and then all phenomena, the modes of abidance of all phenomena, its non-affirming negation, that is the separation from the objects of refutation, which is inherent existence, and then they are similar. So they are the non-affirming negations of this in relation to space and the non-affirming negations to all phenomena. They are similar. So therefore, it says apprehends all phenomena as being like space. Then here it says. Although desiring happiness themselves also in this life, they do not transcend the force of suffering. They themselves and others are agitated and take joy by means of the causes of conflict with enemies and delight in associates. It seems that they must live miserably by way of great fruitless hardship through sorrow when desires are not fulfilled, struggles for the sake of desires, disputes with others, oneself and others, cutting and stabbing each other's bodies, and in addition accumulating infinite negativities, such as those of speech and mind. Hence, the wise one do not crave the marvels of this life. So as an ordinary beings, we do have attachment, and when we have attachment, then therefore we have to be careful with this attachment. So when attachment arises, then what should we do about it? So these are the things that we have to be careful. So so when attachment, how does attachment arises? It arises through it arises in dependence on the desire for happiness. So because of wanting this happiness and not knowing the proper method to accomplish happiness. So in other words is we mistaken the method for accomplishing happiness, or we do not unmistakenly understand the mode, the method to accomplish true happiness. So because of this, then we we feel happy with our friends and relatives, and attachment arises. Then we say pleasant words. We say pleasant words, and then we always mix with them, associates with them, and then we also throw them a party, always have party with them, and etc. So, however, those are not the proper method to accomplish happiness. Yeah, and then sometimes when this happiness, kind of like goes south, then instead of accomplishing happiness, then we will experience suffering. And then in relation to our persons that we don't like, then we are not happy. Well, we are we get angry at them and etc. So previously, when we talk about meditation or cultivations of loving kindness, then we also talk about the method, the cause of happiness. So if we do not understand the cause of happiness, then we will wrongly or erroneously accomplish the happiness. So erroneously accomplish the happiness means that instead of accomplish happiness, we accomplish the cause of suffering. So we mistaken it, and then we erroneously accomplish the happiness means that because of not knowing the cause for happiness, then we think that these are the methods for accomplishing happiness. Then we engage in it. So instead of becoming causes for happiness, it becomes a causes for suffering. So we as ordinary beings, we do have attachment. However, we have to be careful with it when it arises, then how to counteract them, and how does it arises? How does it arise?
다들 대화 저 다시 제당 마셔 봐. 다시 제당 대야지 저와. 제야도 고소서 주보 차야다. 수업에 납치고 요야다. 디지 요야. 디지 상담. 다들 상담에 대고마고 봐. 잡아. 대예 고고다네. 주는 고고 당와. 그와 진하는 고고 당와. 어다 계셔님 보시고 신장 보시고도 고고 당. 지주 보시고도 고고 당. 어다 들리지네. 대 다시 전에 디지 줘야 돼. 제거를 다 당에 내서 디지 요한 가. 그 롱바스 속에 최단간에 이 제보 봐. 그 제시만은 아주 최편에 봐서니 이게 다 제시만은 이게 제비요 봐. 제비요. 어다 근데 디지 부담 마시나 다도서 맞아 도시 요구에서 봐.
So, and then these instructions can also relate to relate to our lives as well. So some poor being, for example, then in order to eliminate the sufferings of poverty, so they do have this desire to eliminate the sufferings of the sufferings of poverty. However, they do not know the proper method to accomplish this goal. For example, in order to eliminate the sufferings of poverty, then they steal others' property, and then in order to become rich, then they rob others' possessions and etc. So besides these other erroneous methods such as lying, deceiving, or saying pleasant words in order to gain something, to get something out of the person and etc. So if we were to engage in this way, then what in fact that we will accumulate is suffering. So not only in this life, stealings, deceiving, and etc. Against the rules of the country, and in future lives, then we will experience the result of suffering as well. Next outline is the disadvantages of future lives. And under this outline is verse 156. And after repeatedly going to the good migrations and enjoying much happiness, they die and fall into the sufferings of the bad migrations, which are unbearable for a long time.
신도 제법 파 실로다는 인제고 산에 들어가 야고 쇼죠레스 카르마 카드 사디 나무 신보죠레스 카르마 사디 문에 나무나 좋아야 보여줘 사차이질라 더 주제지다 까마 카지 주정하지라 테 나수다 제시자 타고 나수다 왔다 사지 되어 마모 되나시래요 대화라 사지 대화도 선호다 예소소는 내가 걸어도 두바이나 다 사지 대화 되나시래스 신도 되나시시 와 신도 되시야 나도 신도 전화도 하고 그러와 신도 되니 마모여라 지나
Through the force of meeting just this time with the spiritual teacher, after repeatedly going to the good migrations briefly, like a flash of lightning, and enjoying much happiness again and again, they die and fall into the rough, hot, and unpleasant sufferings of the bad migrations, the unbearable great hells for long infinite eons. Since one must experience infinite sufferings there, one should contemplate the drawbacks of the bad migrations. So here it mainly talks about the disadvantages of future life. And so due to good karma and good fortune, then we meet with spiritual friends whom are difficult to meet with, and then due to which then we learn dharma, we listen to dharma, we practice dharma, then we take vows, then we study, we practice, and we keep our morality and so forth, and due to which then we accumulate merits, and then due to the accumulations of merits, then we are born as a god or as a human in good migrations. And however, those rebirth in good migrations are of very short durations, just like lightning, and so when we obtain such a rebirth in good migrations, then how do we utilize this rebirth in the good migrations? So if we only think about contaminated happiness, if we only enjoy those contaminated happiness, then and also we do not again engage in actions accords with Dharma. We do not accumulate such good actions anymore. And again, and on top of that, we erroneously engage or mistakenly engage with objects of adoptions and objects of abandonment. So in this way, then sooner or later, then these good results will be exhausted, and then when the time of death comes, then we pass away. Then we go to the next life, and then we will, because of these exhaustions of good karma, then mostly we will go to the bad migrations. So when we are born in those good migrations, what we should do is we do not waste such good rebirth. So otherwise, then this enjoyment of a contaminated happiness is similar to this analogy, which is eating a poisonous fruit. So eating a poisonous fruit is, when you look at the tree, then is also look at the fruits, then the fruits is also very beautiful. It's also very attractive, appealing. So then when you eat it, then it also tastes very delicious as well. However, after enjoying this poisonous fruit without knowing it, then few minutes later or few hours later, then it will give you suffering such as a stomach ache and etc. So it will cause pain in your stomach and etc. So enjoying contaminated happiness is like eating a poisonous fruit without knowing it. Langdo kolo trupsa dero langwa dian doa imba dian siwa da doa ina yan di langwa ina do.
Das langdo kolo bisa susu nyamsa langwa yura.
Nyamsa langwa de.
He lang chedo jujuya de kolo chitu sada. Jujuya tata masheba che jeju ne tenda tadula de susu nyane mone de maleba che de dunge de chibu res. Deji dewa dugo res. Dewa dugo judo manu achi du masheba che de judo no chi du ne de susu dewa yo kasha de dunge de lego res ta langdo kolo de. Jutata the Lema, so near the one the world. A dewan the Judu, Tashi, Manoa to go the two, the no do it. The way you went to do it, Lucia was on the closet.
So we always talk about these mistakenly engaging with objects of adoptions and objects of abandonment, right? So this is what it means in this context as well. So we do desire happiness, however, we do not understand the proper method for accomplishing it. So what we at the end, what we accomplish is just suffering instead of happiness. So we so in other words is what we should be adopted. In relation to the objects of adoptions, we do not know the proper method for accomplishing it. So that is the meaning of mistakenly or erroneously engaging with the objects of adoptions and objects of abandonment.
That one must that Sipa Nana, young some monster, Denny Tinny, medium dresser, medium dresser. Here, pinching guy in Asia, Combasonwa, the magicians.
First three lines of verse 157 say, there are many pitfalls in cyclic existence due to mutual contradiction also on that, like this, without suchness in that.
That another thing I saw, Combasonwa thing as a Sipa Genie, they were Sipa Genie. That's Sipa just never done the house of another level. Consumalama, Giago,
Sipa Genie,
or Sipa Genie. That's Sipa Genie in somebody. That's Sipa Genie in somebody. Sipa, and the Hana Chibaina, Suhana, Sunega Kangala, Adarwa, the Lichiage, Ju, Wa, Lene, Karisana, that Danzi Mariba, the Chatrilla, and that Danzi, Wa, Danzi Mariba, Masipa Chilla, and the Pen of the Ju, Thought, Machi Karisana, that Danzi Mariba. That Danzi Mariba, Teta, Ues and Gawagi, Teva Nebas, and Ues and Gade, that Dame to be sheriff the rest, that another than this year of Dame to be sheriff the rest. Sheriff the code of Machibaina, that did Sipa chicken immediate, Sipa chicken to get it, say to Maris, Sipa Kawachi in a roa, Sipa Kawachi, that the way the pass said to Maris, say to Maris. This year, when we're turning Gatan, don't get citizen, Masipa check a jutera, Gatan don't get citizen, they conan to be sheriff the rest, they conan to be sheriff. What they are which called the Chibaina, that has a Sipa chicken doing no more where the child is of the Kanda Sipa chicken. Doing no more. And was Dirkas Sipa chicken names and comes to get a shield, Consugar, or dig a shield. But Dodo direction, they economic for the Chibara, that kind of develop in the geography, yes, that qualify do a lot of the Google, yes, and to the direction.
Reflect upon the general drawbacks of cyclic existence as follows. So these three lines talks about the general drawbacks of cyclic existence. So there are many pitfalls that are the harms of sufferings in cyclic existence of the desire, form, and formless realms. So when it talks about this general cyclic existence, the general drawbacks of cyclic existence, it refers to the desire, form, the desire realm, form realm, and formless realm, and the cause that projects us or throw us in any of these three realms are the ignorance of self-grasping. So in order to counteract this ignorance of self-grasping, so the one that directly counteract ignorance of self-grasping is wisdom realizing selflessness. So if we do not understand wisdom realizing selflessness, then we will not be able to eliminate such sufferings. Last lines of 157 and first two lines of 158 say, in cyclic existence, there is no such thusness, pass beyond the confines of the oceans of suffering, which is incomparable and unbearable also in that. So the meaning of these three lines are similar to previous 3 lines. So basically, in order to eliminate samsaric suffering, in order to be free from samsara, then we need to understand wisdom realizing selflessness. Next outline is contemplating that even though one is born in happy migration, one has no time to practice the holy dharma. And under this outline is next 2 lines of 158 and first 2 lines of 159. Say, strength is weak in that, and the lifespan there is short as well. And the lifespan there is short as well. There too, in activities for life and freedom from sickness, in hunger and fatigue.
This also be true to the Leatan, and this true the Sony to the Nani to listen. That's also the Berwa, Nazunaji, Lelo Shikoji, Lelo Jiwa, Shikoji Lelo, what that the dish, Shikoji Lelo, they want the water. This also a Misegi, Sentela, Hashangi, so Kanda, Bola, also the Digipe, Garseta, and Nitoji as a Julian Mamadua, without the Digi, Tuni. Means about the Julian Ramarasoni, that Kanda, Sububa, Janda, I hope the child. That the Ligipe maintained and the Ligipe, the Liga go, the Mingo, this also with second mother, the second mother, the Lishua Shawa, Kanda, Shida, Lelo, Carson. So, when it's again, and that judging would do a major. They say, Kanda chooses to live on the Mammo in Dovaina, that much it and Zovaina. Kanda Jobores, Tap Jobores. This was a college at the Dribble Meba, and Dribble the Dunginobia. What that the new one that Dribble Marisata, when he made them by Dumble Mabudu as such love Makash, that's Tanjo Mambushara.
So in relation to these 4 lines, then we have talked about we have obtained this special support of leisures and endowments, and the usual lifespans of a human being is 100 years old. So, and however, this 100 years lifespan is not long. So even though we do not have a long lifespan, and however, no matter how old you are now, then we still think about we are going to live longer, and then we still think about I'm going to practice Dharma tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, and etc. Then we have already talked about the laziness of procrastination, and also we engage in meaningless activities such as putting on like makeups and etc. to make ourselves looks more attractive and so forth. For example, so we waste our time engaging in these meaningless activities, and we also put in great effort in these meaningless activities as well. And at the end, we do not gain any result. These are do not gain any good result out of these meaningless activities. So next 2 lines of verse 159 and first 2 lines of 160. Say, in sleep and detriment, and likewise in meaningless associations with the childish, life passes by swiftly without purpose. Discrimination is very difficult to gain.
내와 쳐 대대낭시 내와 쳐 대낭시 대신도 좋아 당어서 수고 지원을 오라 수고 지원 냠다 옆에 소소비다 에 대매기 샤와 대매기 배다 나이 왕은 고코니 뜻에서 나는 배 주체 주는 거 들리 주체다 그 주자원이 맞지 제시를 받지 근데 받지 나와이나 다 시발레파 조약이 줘 대권에나 지역이 힘내봐 까와 그 고알도 다 저거 마시바이나 들리 시파들 도와 하자 깔래 가버렸어 아 조약 좋아 뭐 들리 원다 간다 주체 들리 원은 말로 지에세 다 되나들이 도와 시발엔다 이죠 대권은 이제 되나 넘버 집어도 힘도 내봐 까와랬어 그 고알도 타도 대란도 받쳐 그랬어 대권은 고마 대란도 받쳐 그랬어
So various outer and inner harms, and likewise in meaningless associations with childish negative companions. So childish negative companions refers to those ordinary beings with whom, or due to whom, we engage in meaningless activities. And then without time to practice the Dharma, this life is discarded quickly, then it passes by swiftly without purpose and disintegrates. And discrimination regarding the meaning of suchness, the cause of transcending cyclic existence, is very difficult to gain there. Thereby, one should make effort in the methods for reversing cyclic existence. So therefore, do not waste time in doing meaningless activities or doing meaningless things. So in order to eliminate cyclic existence, and in order to eliminate suffering, so we should spend our time in realizing the meaning of suchness, or analyzing the meaning of suchness. We conclude with dedication. We dedicate these roots of virtue to the flourishing of Buddha Dharma and to the excellent happiness of all sentient beings. And we also dedicate these roots of virtue to all upholders of Buddha Dharma, illustrated by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, to live eons long, to have excellent health, and may all their enlightened activities and holy wishes be accomplished instantaneously and spread in all directions. And we also dedicate these roots of virtue to our beloved teacher, Kyabje Lama Sopa Rinpoche. And we also dedicate these roots of virtue to our teacher, Kyabje Tisu Rinpoche, and also Tari Rinpoche. So may their unmistaken reincarnations be swiftly returned and be swiftly found. And we also dedicate these roots of virtue to world peace, and may excellent happiness prevail throughout the world. May wars, conflicts, and other unconducive conditions be pacified immediately. And we also dedicate these roots of virtue to all sentient beings, especially those who pass away in these circumstances. So may all their negativities accumulated since meaningless time be pacified immediately and quickly achieve the state of enlightenment.
Sabe wa di ten dang do wa ko la kan be dang che ba ji zen lo sang da ma yi ten me ni mo rin do se je sho cha chu sen jo rin bo je ma je pa na ki du je che ba nya ma me ma yang ko ne ko do pe wa sho ya be ba ye chi da chen ba da ko do sang bo de yang de shen de la ku ge je so da do je yo wa de da dang je ra do ngo tu ni ta wa rin bo je ma je pa na ki du je che ba nya ma me ba yang ko ne ko do pe wa sho ni ta wa rin bo je ma je pa na ki ji che ba nya ma me ba yang ko ne ko do pe wa sho tu ni je so do ju be la chi je se se kan je den lu ge chen na pe mo tin jing ge zo la do wa de zo ye de rin do jo ni ta wa rin bo Then come deep in the Malura, you some you know, got into meditating as all out to share in your show, Tabetan Buddhist around the Rose and Hawaii 6 budget. Rajaji, Maleva, then remember to make it also to be to the budget, shit out to base in Jimbewa, I am issues and make judges to make it in Lama, so what they pay their money to your budget, 约定当马就多为，其中正本这边某多多喜欢喜的一类，把为当就是给这些大当，加些那些图片老婆钱都没得培养，都上面就上的一辈的有些说，要为过于性格的，跟当天往马路就为你天天是我定睛将这一小片世界跑都点不进。